If you know me, thank you for sticking around. I'm Adam, and yes, I am still building a 16-bit computer from scratch. But for today, my pool pump has been giving me some trouble. It's been cutting off as it's warmed up or as it's been under load. I'll throw a video up here of it doing that. The error code that pops up, I've looked it up and it says that it's the controller is losing communication with the driver. Now, I've noticed that it happens more frequently the hotter the outdoor temperature gets, which leads me to believe that I'm actually dealing with some kind of a thermal problem in the device. So you saw me remove the control board. The driver is actually still on the pump. I personally believe that that's where I'm going to find the problem, is in the actual driver. But I figured I'd look at the control board first and see if I can figure out if there's anything wrong there. I'm waiting for the capacitors to discharge. The motor itself is a 3-phase motor. So there's going to be something that converts my single-phase 240 volt to 3-phase 240 volt, presumably. And so that's going to be built into the piece that's still attached to the pump. I think that's where the problem's going to be, but I'm going to dig through the control board first just to see if there's anything that might stabilize this, at least for short term. The pool pump I'm dealing with is a Pentair variable speed 240 volt. It can be run on 120, but it is a Superflow model number 342001. All right. Let me switch up the camera view here a little bit and we'll get into looking into this board. Okay, here is the label here. I believe that's the model number, or at least that's what I quoted earlier. I do not have a serial number on this. It may still be on the actual pump itself. So this is the pin connector that was connected to the driver board. It's got some strain relief here, which was kind of tight holding it in place, so I'm not believing that there was a connection issue here. And then I've got this one, which I believe is a diagnostic. I'm going to get the strain relief off of this, the screws off of this, I assume is this heatsink, and we'll get into this. Now, while I'm doing this, what are my favorite things that I think might be wrong? I believe there may be a thermal compound that's dried out just from the heat. I believe that there may be some capacitors that are bad. That's probably my number one, especially if I find electrolytics in here. There are also dry solder joint possibilities as well. Again, given the heat that this runs in, I believe that that's a real possibility here. Now, one of the questions is what am I going to do with this thing, which is connected out here to the chassis? I may leave it in place. I may see if I can disconnect it. Oh, I can. There's a thumb screw here, which is finger tight, so that should come out pretty easily here. Let's try the pliers. There we go. And then this should pop right out, I would think. There we go. So let's get this out. That now leaves the board. And that is likely pressed in place here. I've got an electrolytic here. I've got a button cell battery. I believe that's going to be a microcontroller. Firmware, maybe? Nothing in here looks like it's going to be horribly sensitive to heat fluctuations. Now, I've got a couple of capacitors here. This is not where my problem's going to be. Let me put this back together then. Okay, putting it back together is just simply the reverse of taking it apart. The fussiest bit being getting that cap for the external connector back oriented properly so that it flips to the top and provides some protection from water. Okay, this pump motor works on 240 volts. I don't want to deal with that. I've shut the breaker off, but I'm just going to confirm that I've actually got no power to this unit. All right, good. Okay, now that I've confirmed that it's safe, I'll go ahead and pull off the two hot leads. It's 240 volts between those. That's what operates the motor there. I'm going to leave ground connected for the moment. I'll be circling back to that. Okay, so why would I be using the pliers here if I know that there's no power to those particular lines? Simply because the pliers were in my hand. No other reason than that. Okay, now you're going to see me pull 4 security screws off of the driver. It turns out I didn't need to actually do that, and more on that here in a minute. Here I make a half-hearted effort to pry up and see if I can actually get that cover off. Didn't work. Okay, there are 2 more visible screws right in front of me. Let's give those a shot. Still nothing. But it's a little looser. Finally, I get to the point where I have to void the warranty in order to see if there's something hiding underneath there. No clues there. There's still something that's holding this driver onto the pump. I feel around it a little bit, and I actually end up discovering 2 more screws. One of them I'm able to get to with the impact. The other one, unfortunately, is going to require the manual method to extract that screw. That power cable is in the way, and I just don't have the equipment with me. So it's easier to grab a screwdriver and just take care of it that way. Okay, now a screwdriver in hand, let's see how many times I can hit the tripod trying to get that screw out. Okay, I'm in. Now before I go any further, I've got to actually pull the power lines back out, so I have to disconnect the power, which means I got to pull that ground line. Straighten everything out, and then pull it all through. Remember, the power's still off. Let me give you a peek of what the actual problem is here. Okay, I don't know if you saw it as I was pulling this off, but this was absolutely caked with dirt and muck and grossness. To the point where, as this sits on the pump, there's a motor fan back here which actually forces air this direction, flipping it over this direction now through the pump. This is all for heat sink, and no airflow could make it through there. So do I believe there's a thermal problem? Yeah, actually I do. Do I believe that I needed to remove these 4 screws and peel off my void warranty sticker? No, I don't, because the 4 screws that was holding this particular piece on, 2 were here, 1 was over here, and 1 was over here. I don't even think I needed to take the power out, except for the fact that I wanted to get it in here and put it on the bench. So if I was to do this again, I would remove the cover, which I did. I would remove the 2 screws here, the 2 screws here, flip this entire thing up out of the way, and just get an air compressor and blow this all out. I believe at this point, seeing what I'm seeing, that this is likely to solve my problem because everything was indicating a thermal cutout. Now, I have not been able to get into this yet. I believe this to be totally sealed, but I might have a purchase place right here to do some prying. And I'm not going to put a ton of pressure on it, but I'm not feeling it move at all. And so there's no movement there to be had. And as I look at it from this side, I have 3 screws, well, actually bolts poking out here, and 2 poking out back here. I don't know that that is related to fastening to the heat sink. I don't know if that's related to holding this all together. I don't see any place where I could unscrew more. Even under here, there was nothing under here. I'm not seeing any other way in other than by brute force and potentially destroying my my driver board, which I suspect is likely to be able to work now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this all back together and give this a test. Now, once again, oriented this way, so this is the way that I stand and look at it. The cover flips up this way, so this actually would be the front of the pump. There is a fan that blows up and blows air this way for cooling purposes. The two screws here, which would be in the back, as you flip the lid up, and then the two screws here on the front. Fortunately, it's reversed for me. It's up against the fence the wrong way. So I'm going to go put this back and give this a shot, and now that it's clean, hopefully this will work better. Okay, I didn't capture all the reassembly. At this point, I have the two screws on the side in. I have power actually fed back through and cinched down, and I'm putting in the two screws that I had left in the driver as I lifted it up, and they ended up falling out. I had to dig those out of the leaves back there by the extension cord. Next is to hook up power and ground. Make sure that I get really good tight connections. I want to reinforce here, I am not an electrician. This video is about what I did, not what you should do. Your safety must be first, and if you're not comfortable and for any reason, get an electrician to help you. Okay, after getting the wire harnesses plugged in, the last step here is to get the control board fastened back down, and then let's see if it works. Okay, so what are my closing thoughts here? Well, first of all, I went down this path trying to keep from spending a whole lot of money on a brand new pump or a brand new driver board. A new pump for me would be about $1,600, and that's in California dollars. A new driver board for this pump would likely be between $500 and $650. That's not something I want to spend right now. There seems to be at least some chatter online that heat is the enemy of the driver boards, and certainly I can see that. The heat sink on there is robust enough to pull heat away, but it also is very close to the ground, and if you have any dust at all that gets sucked into the pump, it's likely to be blown through the heat sink and clog it up eventually. So what do I recommend? Well, I recommend that cleaning that heat sink becomes part of regular maintenance for your pool pump and your pool filter. In my mind, the best time to do that is when you're cleaning your pool filter out. At the same time, just go ahead and pull that driver board off and clean the heat sink behind it. Get all the dirt. In my case, I've got dog hair that gets sucked into that, and just keep it clean. If you do it yourself, I would add it to your calendar. If not, maybe have a conversation with your pool guy when he cleans your filters. Maybe he can take care of that maintenance for you too. Stretch the life out a little bit longer. With that, we'll see you soon.